Lesson 2. The Kingdom of Israel. You are there. It is about 1200 BC. Imagine you are living in the world described by the Hebrew Bible. You live with your family in a small farming village in Canaan. You've heard about the Israelites who recently arrived in the region. Your uncle says that the Israelites spent years traveling through the desert after leaving Egypt. Although this was the home of their ancestors long ago, the Israelites have returned to a very different place. Many different people now live here. The Philistines and the Phoenicians control the coast. Other Canaanites have settled on the farmland. The Israelites get a king. The Hebrew Bible says that the Israelites reached Canaan 40 years ago after the Exodus. They settled in villages in the hills there. Unfortunately, enemies, including the Philistines, surrounded them on all sides, and neighboring kingdoms often attacked. In Canaan, the Israelites lived as 12 independent tribes, each with its own leader. In times of war, an Israelite with strong military skills, called a judge, would rise to power to lead the people. A judge's leadership was temporary. It lasted only for the length of a conflict. Without unity, the Israelites had trouble fighting off their attackers. The Bible says, "In those days, there was no king in Israel. Everyone did as he pleased." To survive, the Israelites decided that they needed to unite under a single king. According to the Bible, the Israelites went to Samuel, a respected tribal judge. They asked Samuel to appoint a king for us to govern us like all other nations. Samuel reminded the Israelites that God should be their only leader. He said that they would suffer for choosing a king. Samuel reluctantly selected Saul from an Israelite tribe to serve as the first ruler of the kingdom of Israel. Historians believe that this took place in about 1020 BC. Saul and David. Except for the Philistines, King Saul defeated many of the Israelites' enemies. By conquering new territories or regions, Saul expanded his kingdom. According to the Bible, Saul did not follow God's commands. As a result, God rejected him, and Saul soon died in a war. By 1000 BC, David, of the tribe of Judah, had become the new king. King David proved to be the strong ruler that the Israelites wanted. David expanded the kingdom, even defeating the Philistines. In time, the kingdom of Israel stretched from Egypt to Mesopotamia. David named the newly conquered city of Jerusalem as the new capital of the kingdom of Israel. Jerusalem was a good choice for a capital city. It lay between the lands of David's tribe, Judah, and the lands of the other tribes. Jerusalem did not belong to any single Israelite tribe. Under David, Jerusalem grew as the center of government and religious life in Israel. David's government continued after his death. King David's descendants ruled for another 400 years. The Kingdom of Solomon. David died in about 967 BC after ruling for 40 years. His son Solomon became the next king of Israel. As king, Solomon began planning a temple in Jerusalem. He wanted the temple to be a place to worship God and to keep the Ark of the Covenant, the box that held the 2 stone tablets on which the 10 Commandments were carved. According to the Bible, Solomon quickly put his plan into action. He directed workers to construct a building of limestone and to line the inside walls with cedar wood. Solomon placed the ark, covered with gold and colored glass, in a special room in the temple. Called the Temple from then on, it was not Solomon's only building project. Solomon also directed the building of forts, grain storehouses, and water systems. To pay for his projects, Solomon placed heavy taxes on the Israelites and drafted thousands of them to work as builders. It was standard practice at the time for rulers to require people to work on building projects. To organize the kingdom, Solomon divided the kingdom into 12 tax districts, which were similar to states. Each district had its own governor and public services. The Torah was the law of the land. Israel's economy performed well under Solomon. Trade agreements with Phoenicia and Egypt helped the economy grow. With Phoenicia, Israel traded food for wood for Solomon's building projects. To protect trade routes and the kingdom, Solomon created a large army equipped with horses and chariots. He also formed alliances with Israel's neighbors. These actions by Solomon led to peace in the region during his rule. Life in ancient Israel. With war no longer a constant worry, the Israelites turned their attention to everyday life. These peaceful times allowed for the growth of religion. Religious beliefs and laws continued to guide everyday life. The Israelites found all kinds of work in the kingdom. Many men were farmers, while others worked as metal workers, carpenters, or weavers. Some became government officials or soldiers. Women ran the households and raised the children. Mothers and daughters cooked, cleaned, collected water, and made clothing for their families. Some women had jobs outside the home, such as working for wealthy Israelites. A few women, such as Deborah, who acted as a judge and an advisor, rose to positions of power. King Solomon contributed much to the success of the kingdom. Solomon was known far and wide for his wisdom. Other rulers traveled to Jerusalem with gifts for Solomon to seek his advice. The Hebrew Bible says, God endowed Solomon with wisdom, in great measure with understanding as vast as the sands on the seashore. Solomon was particularly known for his proverbs, short sayings that express a truth about life. Similar proverbs appear in other cultures as well. Solomon is also said to be the author of 2 books, Proverbs and the Song of Songs. These books are part of the Bible. According to the Hebrew Bible, not everyone in ancient Israel was happy. Samuel had warned that the Israelites would suffer for having a king. The Israelites faced high taxes, drafted labor, and a king who seemed not to care about them. By the time Solomon died in 1928 BC, the kingdom was coming apart. Summary. The Israelites settled in Canaan. Attacks by unfriendly neighbors convinced them that they needed a king. Saul served as the first king. King David, the second king, expanded the kingdom. David's son Solomon brought wealth and stability. He built a temple in Jerusalem. For the most part, life in the kingdom was peaceful.